It all came down to a head. And last thing, if you went to bed last night, you didn't realize this was happening. Well, a lot of us didn't. Joe Thuney has been traded. What does it all mean for your Kansas City Chiefs? What is the plan? We're going to tell you right now. Welcome in, everybody. This is RGR Football. Joe Thuney got traded this morning in what, as I understand it, was a last-minute deal. Conversation had gone, stopped, and come back right away. Okay, great. I woke up to it. You were up a little bit earlier than me, so you knew first. But we're going to break it down for you. And all I will say for you guys is make sure that you like and sub and hit the bell, because we're going to give you the lowdown on why this happened and what it means. If you ask Brett Veach, he's just going to say one thing like our guy, the Mando in the helmet. This is the way. This is the way you move forward in this particular instance. It's a tough one. This is Dan Harms. He breaks down all the film and runs things around here. I'm Ryan Tracy, just the voice in the darkness. It's fine. It's going to be okay, everybody. Dan, what was your instant reaction?
Honestly, my instant reaction was that this, once you thought about it, made sense. Like it was like the whole, okay, they're trading. Like I thought it was going to be Trace Smith. I thought Trace Smith was going to get tagged and traded. That was the thing that I had decided was going to happen, right? And it turns out, I was right about a guard getting traded. So it was just one or the other. And Joe, for everything that he's done, this is the business side. The Chiefs were not going to extend him. They did not want to extend him because that's going to be another huge cap hit at some point along the offensive line. It's not about this year. It's about the future with the cap hit. So for a guy who's going to be 33 and coming off of a 33-year season in 2025, will be 34 this next season, they don't want to have those on the books. And I understand that. I completely understand it. And then if you like listen to Brett Veach, he told us this was going to happen during the combine. He said, we really like Kingsley as an upside at tackle at guard. And you're like, well, okay. He played right side, so I guess, I guess if they trade Smith, then he can play right guard. No, it's left guard. It's left guard that they see him as an upside. And that was where I had to put the thinking cap on, right? Because that was where the retrospect comes in. Kingsley Suamataia was a second-round pick. Ideally, we would love to see him at tackle. I still want to see him play tackle. Mm-hmm. But
I agree.
But in a situation, if you were to tell me that they would draft him and he would end up starting for the future at guard as a second-round pick, you'd be pretty happy with that situation, okay? Now, obviously, when he was drafted, you have Joe and you have Smith, and you're just like, yeah, we don't have to worry about that. That's not how things work, and that's how we have come to this situation. Left tackle is still a big issue at this point if they don't believe that Kingsley can be a tackle, which I'm still reprehensive about. I don't like the idea of completely giving up on a player that was 20 years old that you just decided to move on from at tackle. I don't believe that's a great business decision for him specifically, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. So this is what happens. This is how you sustain longevity as success. You get out from big cap hits down the future for older players, and you find ways to recuperate draft capital. Because I saw a tweet from Matt Derrick earlier today that this is the first time since 2014 that a guard has fetched a pure fourth-round draft pick without a sweetener on the other side of the deal. It doesn't happen. So the fact that they were able to get a top 125 pick for Joe Thuney, knowing the Bears had to extend him, is a good deal.
There's a lot to it. And I will tell you, it gives me an insight into what their plan was all along that folds into what you just said about giving up on a player at a position. We'll get to that coming up.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the basics. You members, look for a video from me probably tonight or tomorrow morning. I'm going to lay out for you everything that I've been hearing for the last 2 weeks and how this process went together. And even I didn't put all the pieces in place to expect this morning. But I will give you everything that I've heard from every contact that I have in a timeline video in the members section. If you want to see that, you got to join. Go hit the join button underneath Dan, the rookie level or above, and you guys will get that. But long story short, when they figured out that we can only keep one, that's what this comes down to. And it is in the weight of things really not very close, because as good as Joe played, and maybe there's no time in his career where his stock is higher. Like you said, guards don't get fourth rounders. This is extreme value for this. He played one of the best seasons that he's ever played. He showed that he's versatile. He can continue to do that, and he can still play at a high level despite the pec injury. His stock isn't going to go up. So he hit the peak at 33 years old. They cannot afford in Kansas City to hope that he can maintain that for a 3-year extension. He wanted an extension. As I understand, 3 years is specifically what his target. Yeah. We'll see what it ends up being. But the Chiefs weren't going to be able to do that. That would put Trey at 28 years old. In trying to overlap those two contracts for 3 years was just not feasible. So it came down to that point when you can't get something done cheap and you had to use the tag, and now you know it's going to be a salary somewhere between 22 and 24 for Trey. It made Joe unable to be tenable. And we thought it would be the opposite. I actually thought so too, because if I was Ryan Poles, I'm like, hey, Brett, I know the guy. I helped you scout him. I'd love to take him. I'll give you I think Trey Smith could have probably gotten them a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
And I know from some of my contacts, the Ryan Poles has been calling about Trey Smith for the last 3 weeks, basically since the night after the Super Bowl. So that was plan A.
Okay.
So as it goes down, the Chiefs stay young. They get a caliber of player that they are A, comfortable with, B, they feel still has some upside and some room to grow, and C, is comparable to what they need for the future. And I don't think this is a little point. The other thing that it does, on top of all that, the cherry is, I think it helps Creed stay at a high level for longer. Mm-hmm. I think that pair in the phone booth can be the future that lets him hit not just his ceiling, but maybe sustain being the best center in this league for a while.
And also, you have to remember that Jawan Taylor is going to be your right tackle next year. So from center to right tackle, you have now solidified that spot. And it's an important part of the puzzle for the Chiefs, because as we saw with the decision to keep Joe Thuney at tackle, they love continuity. Every offensive line wants continuity. So if you think if you don't have a left tackle and then you don't have Trey Smith, that means you have Joe and Creed and then Juwan. So you have two sides of the offensive line that are going to have to learn each other again, whether in terms of a right guard being somebody different or the left tackle at the same time. This way, at least, you're going to have one side that's going to be new, and that'll be able to figure itself out. So continuity-wise, it makes a lot of sense. And for Joe, this is a really good opportunity for him. You know, he started with the Patriots, obviously won the Super Bowl. He came to the Chiefs, helped establish one of the best interiors of football and give Patrick Mahomes a lot of time to throw the football and help nurture him along. Now he's going to Chicago, and he's starting over with a different offensive line to help Caleb Williams get to his peak, hopefully, with Ben Johnson. It's a really cool story for him, and it gives him another opportunity to once again be one of the highest paid guards in football, which he will be after they extend him. For a guy who's going to be, in my opinion, a first ballot, at least should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's absolutely getting into the Hall. So this is, it works out for everybody. And most importantly, the Chiefs get out from a contract that, regardless of how good Joe's going to be, down the road, it will hamper what they want to do in sustaining longevity and getting younger.
Yeah. He's a veteran anchor for that group. And here's going to be the cool part. Joe will go into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. And a couple of years after that, we'll see a 30 for 30 or something. He'll be sitting around and he's like, you know, I did pretty good. I went from the first GOAT to the second GOAT. And if Caleb even scratches what we all think that he could be the next generational talent.
Yeah.
It could be an incredible story of just the quarterbacks you blocked for, you know? So kudos to him. What it means for the plan. This is just part of it. There's a lot of questions in here, folks. It's not a question stream. If you want on the show, throw a super chat in there. We'll try to get to it. We'll try to hit the topics because we kind of have it all worked out to answer a lot of the questions you already had. So, Caroline, thank you for that. I appreciate you mentioning that because I always forget to do that stuff. It's the first step in what they have to do. And as I understand, it's a win-win-win. To quote Matt Derrick when we talked earlier today, everybody's happy. It's probably hard to part ways for Joe, but he had a great run in New England. He had a great run here, and now he gets a third chapter. That's pretty rare to have a third chapter, so good for him. Trey Smith will get the contract. We don't know what it's going to look like, but it's not going to look much different than it looks right now at 23.4. That's going to be it. And now you have Creed and you have him, and they are the anchors here, as Joe will be the anchor in Chicago, the veteran presence that you build around. The Kingsley thing, I want to back up to that for a second, because I will tell you this, and I didn't hear this from anybody inside the building, but I have heard it in other buildings at other times through the years. I've heard it from agents that I've worked with and all kinds of stuff. Like, there is always a backup plan. And so if they drafted Kingsley saying, we're going to bring him in and let him play tackle. If it doesn't work out, we'll give him a veteran. We can always move him to guard. We think he can go in there. They had this on the evaluation sheet last year before they ever drafted him. In case of emergency, he can move inside. He's got great length. He's got good power. He's not as compact an athlete as Joe Thuney, but he moves nearly as well.
Yeah.
Testing-wise, he's above Joe Thuney. So you're staying athletic at your interior three, and you're getting a little bit more length. So I think that was part of the plan all along.
And also, if you do reestablish his confidence at guard, maybe he becomes your swing tackle. In case of break glass, in case of emergency, he can come play left tackle, much like that. Now, you're going to have to get the experience under him. He's going to have to get better with his feet. The big problem that he can't play tackle right now is that he kept getting beat around the edge. No matter what he did, he kept getting beat. He couldn't get out there in time. That's just a fundamental footwork problem. And that needs to be resolved if he's going to be able to kick out there ever in his career. So this offseason, if he's going to play guard, that mitigates a little bit of that, right? It mitigates the need to get all the way out there with your kick step. You'll have far less movement you have to do in the phone booth, but he's going to be useful in picking up stunts and useful working with Creed Humphrey. I think that'll help him as well to move with Creed, to be on the inside, have less to worry about, and maybe get him on the inside and help establish that length, like you said, and use him as a run blocker. You might get more power out of him there as well, because it's not like he's a slouch in terms of pure power at the point of attack. He has that. We're going to see what he has right now in terms of that competition between him and Hunter Norzad in what I would think is going to be. There's no definite if, ands, or buts who's going to be where, but we know Hunter Norzad played well in his time for the limited portions he played. Mm-hmm. Kingsley, again, showed pretty decently at guard in the Week 18 game against the Broncos. So this will be exactly, this is kind of like an audition for both. Much like Kingsley had with Wanya Morris last year, it will be kind of figuring it out. I do believe, just based on the pure power level, that Kingsley will have the upper hand at guard over Hunter Norzad. But technically speaking, Hunter might have the upper hand there. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
And if it doesn't come back, I said it just the other day, I think Hunter Norzad could be the next Nick Allegretti and maybe an upgrade at that position.
Absolutely.
So you have to have a swing interior guy as well. And I do like him for that role. He can grow into it some himself. We'll hit a couple of these here, folks. If you do want on the show, hit the super chats. I guarantee you'll get an answer. Anonymous, Nate was on the radio talking about Alaric Johnson and their interest in him. Is it a sign the Chiefs are moving away from their length threshold? No, it's a sign that they're desperate. It's a sign that they were willing to go outside of their norms to get a player that they felt could shore up the position. I do not think, because Kingsley is over 34 arm length as well. I don't think that this signals a change in their concept. I think it signals a change in their circumstance. So when we're talking about either signing someone else, you might have to dip for a veteran. But if you're talking about drafting a guy, I think those thresholds are in place and they're not being budged.
I think good players are good players. I don't think the Chiefs are going to allow arm length to stop them from drafting a player. Let's assume in this draft class, you get a player who's got 33.5-inch arms that falls to them at 31, and they are sitting there with a high grade on this player. They aren't going to pass on him because he has 33.5-inch arms. They won't do it. And that they're just going to draft him. It's much like the Trent McDuffie thing. You see a really good player that you have a high grade on, whether it's at the end of the first round, top of the second, and he's one of the highest graded players on your board, especially at a position of need, you're going to draft that player. That's just what it is. So Alaric Jackson played very well in the Rams offense. And I will say they are stylistically different, especially the last couple of seasons where they've gone to more power-based offensive line play and more power-based runs. So you have to consider that as well. If the Chiefs were willing to bring him in, I think that it's just because he's a good player and they thought that that would work out for them as well. So maybe circumstance, maybe just because he's a good player too.
Yeah, it could absolutely be. And to be specific, folks, the Chiefs threshold is 33. It is not 34. Like, they have drafted plenty of offensive linemen, particularly tackles, that are sub 34, 33 and something, and that works. And there are a few guys in this class We'll talk more about that. Gave you a little rundown yesterday. If you missed that, not many folks saw it because it was a Tuesday. I'm still going to have my pieces on Tuesday. So give yourself some YouTube time on Tuesday nights because that's when you're going to see what I'm talking about. But there are a few players in there. I don't think that that's going to be much of a problem. So what does this do to the rest of the roster? We talked about Norzad. Caliendo is a guy that had a lot of opportunity and I don't think lived up to it. I do think that they are looking to upgrade from him. Will they cut him? No. I think Norzad's a better athlete. I think he'll grow into a better player. And I think eventually Caliendo will be on the way out of town. Right now, he's still in their top 10, and I do think they're leaning towards keeping 10 offensive linemen for this next season. So don't think that they're just going to jettison him, is my point. But they're certainly looking to upgrade from him. And quite frankly, if they didn't, if Kingsley cannot beat him out, there's a problem with Kingsley, and they're going to have to go elsewhere. That's just the bottom line. So look for that. I see a couple of questions in here about the compensation. And as I understand it from today, it is a 4th round in this draft right now.
2026.
That's not what I read. Okay, maybe I had it wrong. I haven't seen an update in a couple hours. So, okay, it's a 26th 4th. Okay, still. That's going to be what it is. Here's what it comes down to. A 4th round grade, a 4th round pick for that position group is great. It'll help you eventually. You still have things to do here. So that gets back to how do they go forward? And there's another question about Micah was asking, do CDOT thinks that they're 100% going to sign a big name left tackle? Well, my question to you, Dan, is who the hell qualifies as that?
Yeah, right. Who on the board is a big name free agent left tackle? There aren't any. I know everyone's going to say Ronnie Stanley, but we've talked about this ad nauseum. He's had one healthy season in the last 5 years. I'm sorry. If the Chiefs put all of their money on betting on him to stay healthy, they deserve whatever they get. Not to mention, the Baltimore Ravens probably also want him back. And there's just, obviously everyone can have their own opinion, but the simple fact of the matter, there's one big name free agent left tackle on the market, quote unquote big name, and it's Ronnie Stanley, only because he has an all-pro season under his belt. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a big name because he's done nothing over the last 3 years outside of playing healthy this year that suggests that. I don't believe it's really worth it.
And I don't have his birth date in front of me, but he's already 31 years old. So in what I said at the top, that this is the way for you Star Wars fans. I know you know what I mean. If you don't, it is the process, the philosophy, getting younger at the same dollar point for your cap to be able to sustain what you have to do next year and then year after that. A 31-year-old tackle who will be 32 by the time the end of next season comes around. That's not really part of that plan. You are looking to get younger, more athletic, not less. So I'm interested. CDOT knows people around the league too. We'll see what he has to say. I don't see that happening because I just can't see it panning out for them. So XRP, thank you. Appreciate the support. If we draft a running back, who is the best pass blocker in the class and who is a very clear upgrade at the position?
The best pure pass blocker in the class. I haven't watched all the running backs, so I can't give you a real answer to that one. But I will say that all of the top ones block pretty well for the most part. Caleb Johnson's pretty good at it. Even to an extent, Ashton Genty and Omarion Hampton are decent. Omarion is got the build for it. Those guys you're not going to really see. The Chiefs aren't going to be drafting those guys. I'm watching DJ Giddens right now. A little worried about his pass protection, mostly because he can't find the guys. He can't sift through. And that's what I've seen so far, is that he doesn't really locate them very well. Devin Neal is a bona fide pass protection back. 220 pounds, nearly 6 feet tall. He has the makeup to be able to do that. So he's somebody that you can do that with as well. He's not going to give you the explosive factor. He's not that fast. Again, he bulked up this past season and lost some of his speed. But getting into the NFL, he's got good footwork, he has good vision, and he understood sacrificing a little bit of his speed to take some more hits in between the tackles is probably the best option for him. So in terms of fits, Devin Neal makes a lot of sense in that regard, also as a pass protection back.
Yeah, I like the concept, and a little homegrown goes a long way for me.
And just real quick here, Chef Boy, I appreciate the enthusiasm. Jaden Blue is not a third down back. He's a good pass catcher. He's going to get blown up in terms of taking on any pass blocks. Yep. He is too small.
It helps if you can run, but if you have to stay in, it just doesn't work. You get destroyed in the end.
Yeah.
I did see the confirmation. Sorry, I said that incorrectly before. It is a 2026 fourth. Okay, that's fine. The other thing that I do want to touch on is the opposite plan is going on in Vegas. They just paid Max Crosby around $35 million a year. If I did my math,
$91 million guaranteed.
It's crazy. So while they're happy to spend money, the Chiefs do it a little bit more conservatively. I would say personally, that's how I would characterize it. So there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot more to come. Building out that offensive line, job number one. They certainly have a plan going forward. I think it's going to be free agent, and I think it's going to be a draft pick. That's the way that's going to go. We've got some other questions about draft picks coming up here, but I want to get to Gabe. Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate you, and thanks for the support. Why are we suddenly confident in the guy to play left guard if we weren't confident in him to step in a left guard in the Super Bowl? And why do we drag feet on contract extension and wait till the free agency year and allow our cap to be this way? Well, two things. They practiced Kingsley at guard through some of the postseason, but they didn't really feel that they needed to move him because Caliendo had experience there. And that is part of the equation. If you were going to put him in and basically flip him and Joe, you still have to have that number of reps before I think they're going to feel confident. Placing a guard at a guard is probably better, but this is a big offseason. In year two in the league, most guys take a pretty significant jump. So I do think that is part of what they're banking on here. Do you have different thoughts, or is there something else I'm missing?
No, I think you're right. And when you want to get someone, cultured in it, right? He played left tackle 2 years ago before, coming out, right tackle. Sorry, other way around. Right tackle 2 years ago, then left tackle coming out of BYU, and then practiced at left tackle all throughout training camp. And for the most of the season, he was still practicing at left tackle. So, and we talked about continuity. The Chiefs value continuity. It was Caliendo and Thuney at the left side, and they wanted to keep it that way. They didn't feel that it was to their best interest in putting him in there to get comfortable. Their best situation would have been to just keep Joe at left, honestly, at left guard. Like in the Super Bowl, that's what they should have done. I'm not interested in hearing about anything else. Putting Joe at left guard wouldn't have won them the game. It would have given them a better shot, in my opinion. But overall, like that's what that is. And I don't know if they drag their feet on contract extensions. But you have to be the team, the player has to also be willing. This isn't just here, we're going to sign you right now, and it's all said and done. The agent and the player have to be willing to do so. They had talks before this season started, the team and the agent did. They couldn't find a number. And a lot of that has to do with the player betting on themselves. He's like, well, I've played pretty well. This is a contract year. Also, I just watched Robert Hunt get paid $20 million a year. If I have a good season, guess what? I'm getting paid more than he does. So he was probably hesitant to sign a contract because the Chiefs are like, well, do we want to pay you $20 million a year right now? No, let's see how the year plays out as well. Because if he doesn't play at that level, then they can probably find a middle ground, 18, 19 million, and be happy with it. So it's a very fine line in a game you have to play. And again, the player has to be willing to meet you halfway sometimes, and that very rarely happens.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, especially with the older players. Now, in the case of this rookie class, where we're going to start talking about McDuffie and Karlaftis in particular, fifth-year option or signed to extension.
Yeah.
If I know the Chiefs, they're going to schedule that out because it's fixed. It's rent control, basically. The fifth-year option is a set dollar amount, and it's going to be lower than you're going to pay either of them, most likely, on a longer deal. Now, you can drop the initial cap number if you were to do the extension over the fifth year, but longer term, length of the contract, including guaranteed money and bonus structure, you're probably going to spend more if you don't use the fifth year. And so for those two in particular that are coming, dragging their feet is actually good business in trying to keep your cap down. So be prepared for that. But I do think, all that said, every situation is a little bit different about how you feel about the player. And that's why, in the end, I think when you're balancing giant contracts like Mahomes and Jones, et cetera, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do things as far ahead of time as you may like to. And I think the dog agrees with me. So,
Oh yeah, I mean that was more of a sneeze, so maybe she doesn't. I'm not.
oh, okay. Sure. Okay. Well, I'm going to count that as support. Thank you. Yes, Doug. Any Jayhawk that can play is what I'm for. That's where I'm at. So, and Caroline was echoing me here. Yes, if you extend Trent now, you'll save money in the long term. If you can't get there from here because of what you have to do, I believe it's an 8.8, something like that, fifth-year option for him. It's going to look better in 1 year, and then you do the extension rather than trying to foist it out year after year after year, where you have to spread out that money. That is what I think it will come down to, and I agree with Caroline. I would like to see it happen soon. Okay. Back to a couple of super chats, and then we'll get to a couple more questions. Love you guys and all that you do. Thank you. Do you think of Dan Moore Jr. from the Steelers as a stopgap? He's played 66 games at left tackle, and he's 26 years old. He is on the short list for me of younger guys that could be a possibility. I can't guarantee you it's going to work. I would say that the Steelers' style is different enough from what the Chiefs do that I'm not 100% certain that's completely compatible. This is an outside zone team. I don't think they're ever going to get away from that. And I think the draft class looks a little bit better for zone teams in particular, in my opinion, so far. Yeah. But Moore could be one of those. Jackson Carman could be one of those guys. Guys that are still in their mid-20s that have some upside are definitely the direction that you want to go, PK.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm not entirely sure if the Dan Moore experience on the Steelers side was fantastic either. Like I'm not entirely sure that he played great. And I think that's one way they might go. I've been very consistent with the Jedrick Wills idea and drafting a tackle as well. It feels like that might be the way that they go. Specifically, granted, I did get some information from a guy who covers the Browns about he might not be as mentally engaged in football as he used to be, which is another part of the process. So you have to consider that with Jedrick Wills. If they feel comfortable giving him a shot, that would be on the short list for me. Former first-round draft pick. It's got Brett Veach written all over it if he's ready for it. So there is that. But other than that, there really aren't very many good options in the free agent market that give you anything. Now, if you want to bring in a veteran, just to have a veteran in the room, okay, we can have the conversation. But we're talking about they legitimately don't have a left tackle if they think that Kingsley is only a guard. That's a problem. You need multiple players at that position right now. And Wanya Morris is not one of them. He's not an option. He was inactive for the entire postseason. Patrick Mahomes wanted nothing to do with him at tackle. Nothing. So he's off the table.
I agree with you, and I wonder about his future overall, because it's one thing to go to your quarterback and ask his opinion, like Aaron Rodgers demands and that kind of thing. It's another thing for have the quarterback come to you and say, I don't want this guy on the field with me.
Exactly.
It's a whole different ball of wax. So we'll have to see what comes of it. Thank you, PK. Appreciate you. Let's see. Donnie, could you see them go heavy in the trenches in the draft, and with all the vet wideouts being released, could they solidify their wideout room for good? I don't know about for good. For now, I think so. I think they like the veteran presence. I don't think that they're going to put a deal together for DK Metcalf. There's a lot of rumor out there today about them pursuing it and tracking it. I think they're tracking it to see when he's released. I don't think they're trading.
Exactly right. They're like, hey, how's it going over there?
You're right.
You guys getting you guys got a trademark it? You got a trademark it? No? All right. Thanks.
We'll get you in 5 minutes. That's how it feels like to be. And I agree with you. Heavy in the trenches, yes, we've seen them double up positions when it's important. And I do think, at least on the offensive side, I expect to double up in this draft as well as a possible free agent. I wouldn't mind seeing it on the defensive front either. Because if you have questions and you want to protect the secondary, you want to protect your wide receivers and your quarterback, build in the trenches. That is the way to get it done. And I think that's incredibly useful right now. So thank you, Donnie. Appreciate you. Cody wanted to know if Nick Bolton walks, how would you guys feel about Cody Simon in the late rounds? This is the Ohio State kid. I believe he tested pretty well. I have not watched his film at all yet.
I like Cody Simon. I actually have a third round grade on him. So if they can get him on day 3, but the problem with day 3 for him right now is they have a 4th round pick and they don't have another one until the 7th round, right? If I'm not mistaken, like they don't have a 5th or a 6th round pick.
Oh, I thought they had a 6th. Maybe I'm wrong.
Again, I could be wrong, but regardless, they have 2 picks on day 3. That's it. 2 picks. That becomes a problem. I don't think it's going to stay that way personally. I think they're going to get some more. I don't know how they're going to do it at this point, but I do think they're going to attempt to get a 5th or a 6th at some point. But if they have addressed what they needed to address in the first 2 days, and the 4th round pick comes a calling and it's Cody Simon, I'm not going to be mad about it.
I agree with you. And you are absolutely right. It's 132 and 256 as of right now. So there are some things that they need to get done. This goes back to what you said on Monday about if you can't get the prospect you want, trading down becomes the way to go to acquire more talent, because rounds 3 through mid 5 are the band. You'd like to get some 2s, but I think maybe not even second. She said 2 picks in the 60s. 60 to 120 is the range you want to be in this draft. It just makes too much sense. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate you. And we will have a write-up on him and all the testing. I am building the matrix. It is coming along. We have the data in. Not a lot of agility drills, but the algorithms take that into account, and then we update as we go through all the pro days and those kind of things. So keep an eye out for that. Back to Micah. Thank you, buddy. I'm all for drafting Torrey Horton like you are. Will he be available with one of our 4th round picks? 132 is the question. I tend to think so, but I can't guarantee that. I'm really eager to see what his pro day brings. I thought he had a good offseason so far, but it's been pretty quiet on him. Have you watched him yet, Dan?
I haven't gotten through his film yet, but I mean, there's so little of it from this year. You probably have to go back to 2023 anyway. And that's the thing, is the teams drafting him are going to have to rely on that film. Not this season. The testing is good right now. He said he's about 80% of the way healthy, which is great for him, considering what he ran at the combine and having that process going through him. And like you said, the pro day will be another maybe step in the right direction. So if he's there in the 4th round, I think that's a good place to get him. But again, what else do they have on the board? What else do they need on the board? And what other picks do they have? That will limit what they can do with that 4th round pick.
I think it narrows it pretty significantly. But if they can get a 5th, if they can move that 7th into a 5th, maybe double it up. I don't know how much more player movement that we could see.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't have the right player, but we did have the right position, and we knew that was a possibility. That was really the only one that we kind of highlighted as a good way to go, to tell you the truth. So it could be somewhat limited after this. PK's got another. Thank you, sir. Would you be upset if we went D-line 1st round? And if the tackles are gone, no, I wouldn't be upset at all. I've started running mocks. There's some interesting scenarios out there.
Yeah, this is what my expectation is, honestly. I'm expecting them to go defensive line in the 1st round just because of what we're seeing. Now, that does mean that you're going to have some of the left tackle stuff figured out going into the draft. Otherwise, you are essentially putting yourself out there to say we are drafting a left tackle in the 1st round. If you don't give yourself a veteran of any stretch, then everyone will know they don't have one. We're not going to let them trade up. Or if we do, guess what? You need to bring a lot to the table to be able to go get the guy you want. And that's the problem with putting yourself in a position like that. So hopefully they've given themselves at least a veteran. But no, I'm not going to be mad if they draft a defensive lineman in the 1st round.
Yeah, and I think it's a distinct possibility. We'll see how that goes down. I have my favorites. We'll discuss them at length in the coming weeks. Dub Freak, thank you, buddy. I know it's 87's last ride, but is this our comeback to reality season, or do we just accept tough times this year and rebuild next year? I'm really hoping I'm proven wrong. It's success as normal. I don't believe in rebuild in this organization. They've been able to make changes on the fly and sub in players that they had to let go and continue to get back to championship games, if not win the championships. So I am not expecting a rebuild where you're talking about a non-playoff year or something like that. No. I do think it'll be tougher, but I think that there's no reason to think anything else. Can you?
You're going to have a very high floor with this team regardless. And we saw last year rotating through left tackles. They were able to still get back to the Super Bowl. I know it's hard to contextualize that a little bit while we're seeing Joe Thuney leave and the offensive line is going to look vastly different on the left side. but they're still going to have center to right tackle next season. After that, it will change again with Jawan Taylor most likely being released and then trying to figure that out. So there's always going to be flux coming into this season. Again, there was no left tackle coming into last season. It was Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith was coming off an injury. We didn't know what was going to happen with that. He didn't play very well. Wanya Morris had to play at left tackle last year too. There's been a lot of flux. So I think we can at least reasonably assume on the offensive line that there's going to be some of that flux, but they have been able to mitigate some of it. The hope now is that you can solidify an offensive line for all season. That's what they're looking for, is to get continuity and consistency. If you can do that, the defense is going to be good. It's going to be good. The weapons, pretty good. I think it'll be. I think it'll be just fine.
I think it's more than likely that they're right back in the thick of it one more time. Black and Gold, thank you. Appreciate you. Realistically, what DT is a good value pick at 31? The first guy or the last guy that falls.
Exactly.
I've seen mocks drop Nolan out. I've seen mocks drop Harmon out. Like, I don't know if any of that's realistic, but everybody's got a little bit of hole in their game. So I guess it depends on what we hear in the next few weeks about who isn't living up to the expectations.
I think the number one player, if he does fall, would be Walter Nolan. That's like the biggest value. Otherwise, you've got some high upside guys that you're kind of hoping with a Harmon, who I had, again, see more of as a second-round player, same as Kenneth Grant, that I did a breakdown on last week. More of a second-round player, but lots of upside. And then, I mean, defensive tackle, defensive end, you might be able to get away with some of them too, because you have to remember that Charles Omenihu might not be back in Kansas City. Like, there's probably a good chance that he won't be. And Mike Dana, for everything that he's done, is a limited player. And FAU, question mark. This is the last year, in my opinion. This is the last year that you can hope that if he doesn't turn into something, it's over. It is over. You need a starter, because Mike Dana, he has to be a rotational guy. He is not a starting defensive end that gives you enough. And if FAU can't do it, you have to have a plan in place. So defensive end absolutely is in the cards here too. But I think in terms of value, Walter Nolan is the ultimate value guy there.
That's fair. Guys that are around that range, or like Dan said, second rounders in truth, include Tyleik Williams, who I really like.
Absolutely.
Shamar Turner, no production,
him too. Yeah,
but he's a beast.
There's a lot of those guys in this class. A lot of like really highly athletic guys that are defense tackles that they don't have the production, but all they do is like flash. Like, it's just constant. There's a lot of them in this class.
The other one that I'll mention to you guys is Norman Lott. I can't remember his first name.
Tennessee Omar, kid. Isn't it? Omar.
Okay. Tennessee. There's several guys there. That would be, in my opinion, that would be kind of like the safety pick. If you can't get either an explosive or the left tackle protector, that is where you're most likely to go to get value and a solid pick that you can project to play for you.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, this is going to sound dumb, and I hate that. Don't worry about it, Dave. How many days and how long do we have to get under the cap? Start a league year. It's March 12th. We are a week away. Clock is ticking. Let's do those restructures, Brett.
Fun things are coming, guys.
Got
Smith's extension is probably the first thing that comes down the pipe.
Yeah, and that, if they can get that deal done in the next week, look for what they've done with some of their stars before. Around a $5 million base salary with a nice roster bonus. That'll drop the cap out and you'll have some room. You got 16-ish, 18-ish back today with Joe. There are other things. I think they're going to hold off on the Mahomes thing until they know how much they have to take back, because that's just stacking up there at the back.
Yeah.
We'll find out there. Okay, so back to the topic at hand, and Joe Thuney, what else does this mean? It means that they are obviously aware of their O-line situation. They understand, at least every intention is that they understand just how dire this is, and that they screwed up and yet again let themselves get in a position where the O-line cost you a Super Bowl, a championship, because you were there on the doorstep. I take that as a positive sign. I don't know if you think that that's fool's gold or if I'm just wishful dreaming here, but I take that as a positive sign that they're willing to remake this, and that this was a big move and a guy that they've really leaned on. The question is, can they spread that to the rest of the roster, particularly in terms of the cornerbacks, what they do with the D-line, and how they're going to go about trying to put together a linebacker core on a bottom row budget, because of the two, the linebacker's the last priority. The second level is the last priority on this defense.
Not to mention, we just saw Zach Bond get $17 million a year. Nick Bolton is not going to be back in Kansas City. I'm almost 100% sure about that now. The market,
those numbers, damn.
Yeah, it's not great in terms of, again, what you're seeing he's probably going to end up getting. And even if it's not 17, I personally don't think you can pay him $16 or $15 million a year. I don't think you can realistically do that as much as you might want to, because we just saw Joe Thuney get traded. We just saw that. So I think you have to be able to, again, with a draft where you have 6 picks, you have 4 inside the top 100, and then you have 2. The free agent class isn't great. It's not the best. And there's a lot of older wide receivers. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of injured wide receivers. And that's another problem, is that if you bring somebody in and, you know, that they don't produce because they're injured, that's just another knock. Now, again, you could just bring back Hollywood Brown, which they're going to try to do. Market might be pretty good for him too, because he's still relatively young. And I think he played well when he came back, which is a huge boost for him. So there's a lot that you have to be able to do. My concern with how this came about is that after the first time, Brett Veach said, we aren't going to let this happen again. And they actively did. They came into a season without a structured plan at left tackle. It was not structured. Again, you guys know I was high on Kingsley at playing left tackle, and that turned out to not work out.
Yet.
But there was no plan. There was no plan of them saying, well, if this pick doesn't work out, what do we have? There was no plan. So I'm still hesitant, and I'm still worried, because now there is no break glass in case of emergency left tackle. There isn't one. He's gone. He's in Chicago now. So you have to be worried. Again, if Kingsley just falls out, just can't play left guard either, what do you got? What do you have? Like, I like Hunter Norzad.
Mm-hmm. But we don't
have a tackle. But we don't know. We don't have any tangible evidence. So while, yes, in one vein, sure, optimism. Second vein, this happened before and they let it happen again. I'm very worried about that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I appreciate your counterpoint to my feeling. Usually this is flipped, so it's a little bit weird for me. Jeremy, glad you said that. How much good would a miss the playoffs year help these guys? I will tell you this. I kind of feel like with this core group and the guys that have seen this much, and the class that has never ended their season on anything other than a Super Bowl, I worry that it would spiral into complacency and, hey, we got to the mountain. I'm not too worried about getting back there. I'm just going to play and make my money. I worry about the mental strain on them.
I think losing a Super Bowl is far more motivation than missing the playoffs ever will be for this team. Ever. That's how I feel about it. And I think that we've seen that be the case as well. And we're going to find out a lot about them after Travis Kelce retires. That's kind of close on that. And again, we're going to find out. But overall, you have to be able to make those decisions and those picks, because otherwise, well, what are you going to be able to do?
Yeah. Tommy, to answer your question real quick, this is not going to happen. You're not going to get any legitimate player on another team that's on a first contract away from that team. Much like we're talking about, they just got younger in order to get cheaper on the cap. This is the same concept. You don't trade away rookie contracts ever, especially if you're a quality team. So, and a couple of those are in decent places. So I like it. If you guys don't know, I've probably mentioned a few times, my mom was a Bears fan, so I'm happy for Brian Poles. I'm happy for Joe Thuney. Better things ahead. I actually like Caleb Williams. I know he's a little bit eccentric, but that's okay. So I'm hoping that this helps him turn into his future as well. I just don't know what the future is going to hold all the way around. And now we're 44 minutes in, and we haven't told you that you guys should go check out Underdog Fantasy. Totally slipped my mind, Dan. Thank you for putting it up there.
You're welcome.
This is all on me. This is all on me. If you guys saw my piece yesterday, check out, because the hockey thing was working. I got 2 out of 3. I didn't hit the bingo, but Ross Colton, I'm disappointed in you. I'm just going to say. So if you're waiting for football stuff, don't worry. There's basketball and there's certainly hockey. I'll probably stay on the hockey stuff for a while. What's got your interest right now?
You guys don't. The cool thing about doing the pick'ems is that you don't really have to know anything about the sport. It's so much fun. Like I love doing these. And just last night, we had Underdog puts a lot of things out there too, like free pick'ems, like where you get in higher than 0 points or higher than 0.5 points, and it's an automatic boost to your pick'em thing. So you have last night I had De'Aaron Fox was my free space. Let's just call it free space. And then I had Donovan Mitchell higher than 26.5 points. He had 28, and Tyrese Halliburton at higher than half doubles, which for those who don't know on basketball, meaning 10 or more points and 10 or more assists or rebounds. So if you looked at his stats, all he was been doing is just getting assists and getting over 10 points. So you hit that and boom, there it is. It's like you don't have to know anything about these. You just go in, you put a little slip together. It's higher or it's lower. You just pick and then you boom and you start to have a lot of fun. And Underdog with the code RGR at sign up can get you guys in on the action right now. I don't know if it's still running the sign up bonus of what is it? Do you have that information, Ryan? The sign up bonus with the RGR code?
Oh yeah. That's 1,000 match deposit right there. You can get.
That's right. Oh, boom. See, look at that. You guys can even just get more money for signing up and putting up to $1,000 in there, and Underdog will match that in your account as well. So it's just a lot of fun. Hockey is going on right now. I'm a big hockey guy, and as you guys know, if you follow me on Twitter, and even like I said, I don't really follow basketball, but you don't have to. It's just a lot of fun.
I tell you what, if you guys are into the hockey side, I am crushing in fantasy this year. You might as well make it better with Underdog Fantasy. So get in the action over there. We appreciate them coming on board and being with us this year. A lot of fun. I am never skated, by the way. I'm in a 14-team league with an entire hockey team a friend of mine plays for, and I'm the only one who doesn't play. So it's a good time. Whiskey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Trading a quality player the year before his contract is up seems like a pretty historically successful model. Brady Belichick. Yeah, it is. And especially when it happens to be, as much as the contract year never loses for the player, if they hit like an all-time high or something close to it the year before, it never fails for a franchise. So again, I do think that this is an everybody win situation for Joe Thuney going to the Bears with draft compensation coming back belated, but giving you the cap room to keep Trey Smith and do the other things that you need to do. So a couple other questions and we will call it a night. Could that move Creed to left guard and pick up Jared Wilson if he is that good? No. Jared Wilson, as good as he may be in this draft class, is not better than Creed Humphrey. So no.
0% chance.
Not on the radar. Let's see. I was just picking through. Dan, throw anything else that you saw.
I know we have one from Chef Boy asking about Ozzy Trapilo out of Boston College. If I can find it real quick to throw it up there for you right here. All right. So this one is interesting to me because he's 6'8", 316 pounds. He's got 33-inch arms. At 6'8", with only 33-inch arms, that gives me pause specifically because again, now you have more room here, but less room here. Okay, and for a guy who's not going to be hugely athletic at 6'8", you just don't move that well. And I did watch him at the Senior Bowl, and I wasn't hugely impressed. I thought he had some flashes, but he got beat around the edge far more likely than I would have liked to see. But again, if we're talking about big guys that have upside, the Chiefs literally have Ethan Driscoll on their roster, who's a better athlete, and he's got that length. So I think that they'd be far more likely to stick with Ethan Driscoll. And the fact that they kept him on the roster, probably think he can be something, right? At the very least, he can be a backup. So in terms of having a big guy on the roster, I understand the like for Ozzy Trapilo. I think that they have their answer for a big possible future type of tackle in this scenario with Ethan Driscoll already on the roster.
I like that concept. And Have you seen the Rutgers guy?
The
Pierce?
Rutgers guy, Hollins
He's like
Pierce.
608
I'm gonna be watching him. Honestly, he looked way better than Ozzy did on the field Joe. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch him this week for TDN, so we can release our TDN top 100 after the combine next week. So he'll be on the radar for me too. I haven't watched him, but looked pretty good on the field. I won't lie.
Okay, well, I'm interested to see. He came in at 36 even on the arm length, so that's an outlier in a
Love
good
to
way.
see that.
Yeah,
You're right.
So, lot going on there, folks. We appreciate you being with us. Last call for Joe Thuney comments or questions, and we will move on down the road because we have a lot coming for you. Gary's going to be up tomorrow, and we have takeaways. We have film that we're working on. I'm trying to finish my quarterback rankings this week, and I'll get those out on NFL 33. So if you want all the draft content, we release it on NFL 33 along with Rogue Analytics or Performance Consulting, where you can actually order all the materials. So keep an eye out for that. I don't anticipate any more moves coming, but I didn't see this one coming, Dan. So if you had to gird the loins against something crazy, what would you think it is?
I mean, I don't know if I see anything crazy happening right now. I mean, I wouldn't even call the Joe trade crazy.
Right.
I did think they were going to be moving a guard. I thought it was going to be Trey Smith. So I mean, the thought process was there. I think if anything, it won't be somebody being traded. It would be an acquisition. In the next week, if you saw the Chiefs trade for a tackle, that would not completely and utterly shock me. But it is something to be at least half-heartedly expecting, in terms of if they're going to be making a move, a splash. If they don't like the tackle class, if they don't like the free agent class, that's the only way to upgrade your left tackle spot right now for the future. Right now is with the trade. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I like it. I hope that they do something like that because I do feel better about that than just trying to pick up
I agree.
an upside free agent, because I think that's the bulk of what's in there. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not talking about a Chris Jones trade. We're not doing that. I'm not ready. It's been a day. I'm not ready. So. Oh man. Okay. Any last thoughts from you before we get out here?
Yeah, just I've seen a couple thoughts on there on Anthony Belton. Yeah. On day 2, if Anthony Belton fell to KC, yeah, I'd be very, very intrigued by that. Lots of upside there as well. I think he's also a 5th or 6th year player, because he played the year before COVID hit in a small school. Then he transferred to NC State after COVID, so he missed a year of football in there as well. But lots of upside. Played well 2023. Didn't have a great year last year, but looked good in the Senior Bowl, and again tested well. On-field drills looked well. So I'll be interested in that. But just this is going to happen. I don't know who it's going to happen to next, because that's never, we didn't see the Tyreek Hill trade thing coming. There were tea leaves here for the Joe Thuney one. It just came about really fast and then just took off really quickly. There will be somebody else down the road, a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years from now, that you all love, that the Chiefs will trade. It will happen because this is what happens when you are good, when you're constantly picking at the end of the first round. The only way to keep competition, to get picks sometimes, is to trade your good players, to keep that rotation flowing. No matter how much the salary cap inflates, players' rosters are going to continue to inflate. It's the natural way of life. So just try to be rational about it in the future. I know it's not easy. Fanatics is all in the name there, but come back to what they've done. And I think that this one specifically makes a lot more sense than at the time, the reaction to the Tyreek Hill trade, but we saw how that worked out for the Chiefs. So we can look back and say, hey, that worked out really well for them. This one, I think we'll look back on with the same admiration.
I think you are absolutely right there. We're going to wrap up with one more comment that we started with, and we're going to finish with. Yeah. Ronnie Stanley is going to be 32 years old next season. Could they go for it? Yes. I think he ends up back in Baltimore, and I don't think he's necessarily the guy they want to spend money on. So it is
agreed
what it is. That's it for us tonight. Make sure you are back with Gary tomorrow. Like, sub, hit the bell. If you want to hear what I'm going to lay down about the process to get to this Thuney trade, from what I was hearing before and why it hit me out of left field, make sure you join the memberships at the rookie level or above, and I'll have that for you here probably tonight or tomorrow. So thank you. Kudos to Caroline, to Cole, Thundarius, a bunch of our friends and longtime fans have been in here tonight. I appreciate you guys. A little strange to do a stream on Wednesday, but hey, we got it done. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, of course, man. This is what, it came about, and I figured this would be what draws the interest. Everyone wants to do that, right? We want to see the trade stuff. And this is a week before we'll see moves start to happen. The league year starts next. Actually, we're going to start to see stuff happen in the beginning of the week next week, but this is the precursor to the opening of the official 2025 NFL league year. So we know it never stops. Draft season's here, but free agency is about to start. And from there, it just picks up steam. So just keep tuned in. We'll keep you guys as informed as we possibly can. And also tomorrow, I have it on the schedule. I will be finally getting to a rant for you guys. Finally getting to a rant for the members there. I know I've pushed it off. I understand. I apologize. I really do. We're going to have a good one tomorrow. Record it for tomorrow.
I like it. Let's get after it. Have a great night, everybody. See you in the members area, and we'll catch you tomorrow.